Good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual But Not Religious Show. I'm your host, George Lewis. I've got a great guest tonight. I've got a really superb guest again next week. I've got Ann Morrison. Ann is a real live Broadway star, been on many shows on Broadway. I just was up at the American Stage Theater in St. Petersburg and saw her in a show that she had written, directed, and starred in. And it's about a trip that she made to Scotland and her time in a fairy glen and the four stage plays and stories that came out of that. She'll be here in the studio. You are going to love her. You're going to love the show. Be sure and tune in next week. Before I introduce tonight's guest, I'd like to tell you a bit about the Spiritual Broadcasting Network and about the Spiritual But Not Religious show. Actually, the Spiritual But Not Religious show came into being before the broadcasting network, and it just all really kind of came together as a result of the Spiritual But Not Religious. It is a the idea here is there are really, at this point, I'm sure millions of people who call themselves spiritual but not religious. And because we really don't gather into any kind of a central group, a church, or some go to church, but most don't, we really have no voice in the world. And we are a group of diverse thinkers, diverse believers. And the Spiritual Broadcasting Network is about celebrating that diversity and about bringing those voices to you, and so that we have a voice here in the community. So be sure and join us. If you know someone that would make a good guest on our show, written a book or doing something that's pretty active in the spiritual community, please contact us, and we'd be glad to talk to them about being on the show. My guest tonight is Hillary Raimo. Hillary is a really renowned healing expert, energy healing expert, a clairvoyant. She's a teacher. She's just a fantastic lady. She has her own radio call-in talk show, talks to some really great people. I know you're going to have a good time with her tonight. And she's got some pretty wide, varied spiritual experiences that we'll have Hillary share with us tonight. Tom, we got Hillary on the phone?
Yes, we do, George.
All right. Hillary. Hi there, Hillary. You able to hear me tonight?
I can hear you. Am I going to hear George okay?
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay, good. Good evening.
Hi, George. How are you? Thanks so much for having me on tonight.
Hillary, did you have your computer speakers on?
I do.
Yep. You'll need to. We'll get a lag there. You'll need to turn those off.
How's that?
Oh, that's much better. Well, actually, we won't seem so alien to one another here. Or at least hopefully we're not going to. You know how this stuff goes. Hillary, I'm pleased to have you. Before we get started here and talk about some of the wonderful, really exciting things that you've done and that you're doing, I'd like our audience and myself included to get to know you personally a little bit better. So if you don't mind, I'll ask you some questions about your personal background, and we'll kind of take a look at, and then we'll kind of get into what's been going on lately for you. Are you married, Hillary?
I am, yeah.
And do you have children?
I do. I have two boys, two fabulous boys.
That's fantastic. How old are they?
10 and 12.
Oh, wow. You're right in the middle of, you must really be busy. I see your schedule and what's going on, and you got two boys you're raising. And your husband, how does your husband handle what you do?
Well, he's supportive in every way he can. I'm a handful.
Well, it looks to me like you might be a handful, a good handful, but a handful nonetheless.
Yeah, no, he's really supportive, and he's a wonderful person, and, he keeps me very grounded, which I need at times.
So is he, oftentimes I'll have a guess that the husband or the wife is a bit of a cynic or not quite a believer in what we're doing here. How is he with that?
Well, I can tell you a story, George. And
yeah.
The story is that he does semi-pro bass fishing, and so every time he goes out for a tournament, he asks me to do some Reiki on the boat.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And I brought home, like an amulet thing from Egypt the last time that I was there, that the local fishermen in Egypt would put on their boats to help them, give them good luck, good juju, to, catch lots of fish, and he swears by it. So he's been converted.
Oh, that's great. Well, there's nothing quite like hitting a man's heart and helping him catch a big fish.
That's right.
No question. Well, so you have a whole new line of business now. You're doing Reiki on fishing on bass boats, huh?
Yeah, I guess you could look at it like that. Yeah.
Hey, what the heck? We never know what opportunity is going to come along.
I don't think anybody's covered that market yet.
No, I think I think you're right, and finding people with this kind of thinking who are bass fishermen might be a bit tough generally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, tell me. It looks like from what I see, you started really early in this. You had an experience with your grandfather at 5. How about talking to us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it wasn't a planned thing, and I've talked about this quite a bit on other shows and in different interviews. But,
right.
The way that it happened was he was doing some meditation. He was at that point in his life creating CDs and meditations where he was leading people through guided visualizations and so forth. And he was doing it himself, and he was hooked up to a biofeedback meter that was measuring his heartbeat, and it was clicking and making a sound. And, as a 5-year-old child, I was really interested in what that sound was. And
Sure.
So I asked him about it, and he showed me how it would, go with my heartbeat, and he hooked it up to me, and I was fascinated. And, as a little girl, it was something that was just kind of one of those neat things. And then he said, "Do you want to go on a journey?" And I said, "Well, sure." And that was it. And he led me through a past life regression, a full-blown out-of-body experience for me. And it was really just one of the most amazing things of my first 5 years of life that I've ever experienced. And it just kind of blew open channels for me that have never closed. And I'm really grateful for that now at this point in my life. And I can honestly say that, in the years past, it's been very challenging for me personally to, have all of this, I'm very sensitive and have all of this incoming data, so to speak, on different situations and people and things. And it took me some time to really figure it out. I had my grandfather's guidance for a while, but he wasn't my primary caregiver. So it was, an interesting journey to say the least. But at this point in my life, when I look back on that now, I can certainly understand from the perspective that I work on professionally that it opened up my chakras, and it was a complete kind of clearing of those channels, and they have stayed open ever since. And so I've learned how to work with them, and now I teach other people how to do the same thing.
Well, I'm sure it had a profound effect on you because when we're 5, we're not inundated with all the disbelief, and that's all suspended for us. You were into the mystery and the magic and the wonder of the world at that point, So we're very, very open. That's a fantastic experience. Do you remember much about the regression itself?
Oh yeah, in fact, it's I can recall pretty much every step along the way of the experience, like it happened yesterday. And in fact, with all of the work that I've done since then, now even included, it was the most clear and the most realistic journey, I have to say. And so, I met my parents from a past life. That's what he said. That was the intention, that I would go out of my body and I would go into a space that I would meet somebody. He kind of set it up. He didn't, he set it up in a way that it was, you're going to meet a guide or you're going to meet somebody when you get to this certain particular point in the journey.
So he set an intent, but not necessarily a specific.
He didn't. It wasn't a suggestion. He didn't, plant a suggestion, so to speak.
Right.
But and that's what happened when I walked through that doorway. There were 2 people standing there, a man and a woman, and they appeared to just be like ordinary farmer country people. And the setting to me felt very much like the England, the countryside, the green rolling hills behind it. If you've ever been to England, you know how beautiful that countryside is once you get out there. But what struck me the most was the feeling of familiarity and knowing who they were, and having the emotional energy come back. And that was what stuck with me the most. There was an emotional recognition, an energetic recognition.
Leaves a real imprint with you.
Yeah, and so I feel that, and I've gone back into that lifetime since, and I really think that I passed away young. I think I might have been like an older child, or maybe a preteen age or something like that, but I feel like I left that lifetime very young. But it was a very happy and nurturing and content-filled feeling when I saw them and recognized them. And so, like the kids you see in the movie, I was obsessively drawing those pictures afterwards.
Right.
Wanting to go back, and so it was a very difficult thing actually to process as a 5-year-old, and it was difficult for my parents to process that too, because they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't have any resources, and they really didn't understand what my grandfather did as a psychic and as a channel. I mean, he grew up with a regular 9-to-5 job, and then all of a sudden, about midway through his life, he decided to put his gifts to use.
So really threw the family kind of for a loop then, huh?
Yeah, it
Wow.
did. So, but it's been a healing process for all of us, and as I've kind of branched out and learned how to work with them, and along with my grandfather's guidance and other teachers' guidances over the years, it's been a really wonderful experience, and I've been able to process it. And like I said earlier, it's been a big blessing in my life. For sure.
So how old were you when you actually decided that you would go into this line of work and use your empathic abilities? Was there a turning point for you, a place where you made that decision, or just kind of it all kind of like blend together?
That's a good question, because I got into regular 9-to-5 jobs. I went to school for psychology. I figured I would try to put to work some of the things I was at least seeking out for myself. I wanted answers anyway, and so college background I went through for psychology, and but then I wasn't really finding the answers to the things that I really wanted, and it seemed like the world of psychology was just putting people back into boxes, so to speak. So it was kind of like, here we have these labels, and I was seeing people who were diagnosed with certain things who really would just be kind of self-fulfilling. A lot of the times, a lot of the things, oh, okay, now